You know that scene in Princess Bride when Inigo Montoya turns and says to the guy that voices T-Rex in Toy Story, he says, "You keep using that word. I do not think it means what you think it means." I've got one for you. Eternal life. I do not think it means what you think it means. Stick around, we'll talk about it. We're here to study the Bible. We're here to study the Bible. We're here to study the Bible. Might get us in trouble, 'cause we're being intentionally provocative with our intros. So for the focus of these Bible studies, we're going to kind of swap things out. We had been looking at Psalms and studying John on Sunday evenings, and we're going to swap that just because I think it makes more sense for us to continue on in our study of the Gospel of John, but maybe not use it as sermon material. So here we're going to do some bite-sized chunks from the Gospel of John. And where we left off in our study, we're in John chapter 17. And this is actually something that bookends a larger section of teaching from John 14 through John 17. And in John 17, Jesus begins to pray. Scholars have referred to this as the high priestly prayer because Jesus is making intercession for his disciples and ultimately for the church. Other scholars have said, well, let's just call it a farewell prayer because this is sort of what happens. In John 14 through 16, Jesus has his disciples in a room and he's teaching them, he's preparing them. He's saying, hey, these are the things that are coming down the pike for us, and these are the things I need you to be aware of. Namely, I'm going away, and that's going to be good for you because the Spirit will invade and the Spirit will indwell, and that's going to be better for you in the long run than me being here. So I'm leaving and I need you guys to get ready for that. You can think of this like Jesus' last lecture with his disciples, and he's saying it's going to get difficult. Here's some stuff, but ultimately it's going to be good, but it's going to be hard. And then in John 17, which is like the climax of this entire talk, he prays for them. Now this prayer is great because it looks back to the stuff that he's said and it looks forward to the stuff that's about to happen, namely in his crucifixion and his resurrection. And the prayer itself, scholars wrestle with how to divide it up, but thematically it works for us to divide it into three sections, where Jesus prays for himself, and Jesus prays for his disciples, like the followers in the first century, and then he prays for the people that will become followers based on the teachings and the witness of the disciples. So it comes down the line, and it also pretty cool. It includes us. Like this is a prayer for the church that will show up throughout history. So the Bible, it rarely includes or is specifying things to us. This is written to an ancient people, but here, Jesus' prayer, it gets there. So hold off on that. I just want to look at Jesus and how he prays for himself in the very beginning of this larger prayer. He says, Father, the hour has come. And for John, this is a big moment because Jesus has been talking about this hour, and it's not time, and it's not going to happen. It's not the thing that's right here. Even in John chapter 2, when his mom shows up and says, hey, we need some wine at this wedding, Jesus is like, it's not time, hold off. But now he's saying, it's go time. And then he transitions and he says, glorify your Son so that the Son may glorify you. It's almost like this prayer for make sure that the work that is about to happen is the work that needs to happen. Glorify the Son and the things that I'm about to do. Since you have given him authority over all people to give eternal life to all whom you have given him. Now I know for most people, when we think about eternal life, we think this is the sales pitch, this is the gospel, this is Jesus saying, invite me into your heart so that when you die, you won't go to hell and you'll go to heaven and you'll be with me. And we kind of think about these disembodied spirits floating off into some place out there somewhere, and we begin to think about eternal life as something that's distant, it's in the future, it's not something that we access here and now, it's something that happens to us when we die. So the big sales pitch for a lot of Christians is, hey, live in this way so that in 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years when you die, then you'll receive these benefits, which really isn't good news. And that's really not what Jesus is talking about here at all. In fact, N.T. Wright says this eternal life, this life of the coming age. Now, you have to understand that in the first century, Jewish people had this idea that there would be a climactic moment when the Messiah shows up, and they move from the present age into the age to come. And the work of the Messiah would usher in the age to come, everything that they had been hoping for and waiting for. And there would be this decided break between what's happening here, and judgment would fall, and all of the oppressors would be taken care of, and everyone would enter into the age to come, all of the followers of God, that is, and they would be here. But in this text, it says that this eternal life, this life of the coming age, it's not just something which people can have after their death. It's not just something after this moment, and it separates the present age and the age to come. Something different is happening here, according to N.T. Wright. It says it isn't simply that in some future state the world will go on forever and ever and we will be a part of it. The point is rather that this new sort of life has come to birth in the world, in and through Jesus. So there is this breaking point where Jesus the Messiah, through his death and his resurrection, things happen. But what is happening is the age to come is invading this present age. Eternal life we have now. Heaven comes to earth, and we participate with God in the restoration of all things. Jesus is saying that this is eternal life, that they may know you, that they may know the only true God and Jesus Christ whom you have sent. It's not about out there somewhere. It's not about after you die. It's about right here and right now. Jesus is giving eternal life to his followers, and it begins now. That's not the sales pitch that we usually hear. What we usually hear is follow Jesus so that in 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years, then you'll receive the real benefits of following Jesus, namely not going to hell. And Jesus, this is not in his periphery at all. He's saying that he has come to give eternal life. And what that means is people will know God through him. It's different. I do not think this word means what we think it means. And for us, the payoff is beautiful, because no longer is it we wait for something to happen climactically way out here. It's the age to come is invading the present, and it's ours for the taking. I'm hopeful that this sort of rethinking of eternal life is something that motivates how we view the entire world, and how we view redemption, and how we view our participation in it. Because that's really what it's about. It's been an invitation for us to understand eternal life and to live it and to share it and to begin the work of bringing the age to come into the present. I'm hopeful that that is something that can energize our souls and call us into action together. So we're going to put the words of the first few verses of Jesus' prayer on the screen and just allow you to think through it. The book of John is so deep theologically that we can't possibly cover all of the topics, but here's something that we can focus on, and maybe in your reading of the text there's some other things that draw your eye, and I would encourage you to think and meditate upon those.